Welcome to the Greater Culture Podcast, where movement, mindset, and mastery meet. Join us as we explore the art of living fully with expert guests and real-life stories to inspire your journey. And welcome to another episode of the Greater Culture Podcast with your host, Brad Marshall. And today, I'm excited to be joined by someone just recently having met, Bethany Larson, up there at Thousand Lakes Fitness in Minnesota. We had the chance to connect at a training think tank camp and got to meet each other a little bit and hear a little bit about her story. So I thought it'd be fun to have a conversation to get a little bit more about her journey in fitness and as a gym owner and how she helps to support and work with other athletes. So Bethany, thanks so much for taking some time to jump on the podcast today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm humbled. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, and I know you just celebrated 5 years up there at Thousand Lakes Fitness, and it's always super fun to hear people's stories of how they got into fitness or how they found CrossFit and how that eventually turned into coaching or owning an affiliate. So tell us a little bit about what your fitness journey was like and how you ended up at Thousand Lakes Fitness up in Minnesota.
Yeah, so I am a former college volleyball player. So I played at Bemidji State University, which you probably have never heard of. I'm not sure. It's a D2 school. They got D1 hockey, so it's kind of a big deal for hockey players. So I played volleyball up there for 4 years and then graduated college in 2013 and knew as soon as I was done with college volleyball and the structure and all of that, the weight room and that kind of stuff, I knew I needed something. And that was pretty obvious right away. So as soon as I finished up spring semester, after volleyball was done, did some student teaching for teaching outside of college. And I looked into CrossFit gyms in the cities. So Minneapolis, St. Paul area in Minnesota. And I found one in Roseville, Minnesota, just outside of the cities randomly. I'm not really sure why I stuck with that one because there's probably 30 or so within that area. So I just randomly went with that one and it ended up being the best decision I could have made because I ended up meeting my husband now at that gym, which was really cool. So I believe there was a reason that I went to that gym, fate and all that stuff. And I actually was able to, within 2 years of starting CrossFit, I did actually compete at the CrossFit Games in 2016 with Timberwolf CrossFit. So that was the gym I was at. And they were a big name in the team side for 5 or 6 years straight, I think. There was 1 year in there that they didn't make it. I think that was 2015. And I went in 2016. So I started CrossFit in 2014. 2 years later, got to go to the CrossFit Games, which was crazy. Meanwhile, I was a Phy Ed and health teacher at a high school. And along with teaching, I don't know if you know how much teachers make. Not a lot, unfortunately. I was also coaching 3 sports year round, basically. So I would coach volleyball in the fall, and then I would coach weight room and travel volleyball in the winter, and then I coached track in the spring. So my days were packed full of teaching, coaching, and then trying to make it to the gym to try to keep up with my teammates to go to the CrossFit Games. So 2016 was a crazy, stressful, exciting year for me in my CrossFit journey. Still kind of surreal that I can say that I went to the CrossFit Games. We ended up, I don't know, somewhere middle of the pack that year. It was a really great learning experience. I was still very new to CrossFit at 2 years in, so I did my best. I'm definitely more fit now than I was back in 2016. I'll say that, but so is everybody else. So I'm not saying I should be at the CrossFit Games anytime soon. So after 2016, going to the games, things kind of slowed down. I was kind of like a check it off the list. It wasn't something I was going to try to pursue again or the next year. And then I just kind of CrossFitted for fun, local competitions. There's a lot of stuff around here. My husband's job ended up taking us to Chicago area he works for Heineken full-time, Heineken USA. And we went out to Chicago area, just outside of Chicago for 2 years. And I ended up finding a gym there, CrossFit Posted, super great gym. I ended up not going right into teaching. So I taught for 3 years here and I decided to get my CrossFit certification, level 1. So I could coach at the gym I was going to, and that ended up being great. I coached as much as I could, a lot of classes, and had my first kid out there. So I didn't end up going back to teaching. So that kind of brings us back to moving back to Minnesota after I had my first son, Wally. We moved back to Minnesota 2 years later, and again, more fate, randomly found a house here in Forest Lake, Minnesota, was not really anywhere on our radar. It was just a really great house on a small lake and kind of outdated, but something that we could envision ourselves moving into and creating a life there. So I joined the gym here in Forest Lake. It was CrossFit Thousand Lakes at the time. And within a couple months of being there, meeting the community, I heard that the current owner was looking to sell. And I was like, this could be really great. I didn't really want to go back to pursuing teaching high school. So my husband and I looked into it and we decided to kind of make an offer and go back and forth with the previous owner. And then we ended up buying it December 2019. So about 4 months into me living here in Forest Lake, we bought the gym. And then my whole life just kind of turned around. So that's kind of a CrossFit journey. I've been doing this for 10 years.
Yeah.
Almost 11. Wow.
That's amazing. How quickly finding a gym, jumping into CrossFit, making it to the highest level of the sport as an athlete, and then where the twists and turns have taken you over the years. Was CrossFit something you were aware of in college as you were competing in volleyball, or was it something that was sort of fringe, or you found it after? Because it sounds like it was a pretty quick transition of graduating college and all of a sudden, like, I found a gym and then I'm off and running with it.
Yep. So I saw a former Bemidji State athlete, actually, Tyler Tosunian. He moved out to California and started CrossFit after doing hockey at BSU. So I kind of like following his journey via Instagram, like, what is he doing? This looks really cool. And then I just started, Google searching. I was at a Snap Fitness in Bemidji, and I was literally like making my own CrossFit workouts, probably looking like an idiot. People were looking at me funny. And then I just connected with the Roseville gym coach, and I was like, hey, I'm going to come and try this gym when I'm down there. I'm going to plan to join it. So he was helping me out when I was still up in Bemidji, which was nice. So then I got a little bit of feel for it. And just being a former athlete, I think makes it a little bit easier of a transition with having some barbell experience. But I definitely just needed that competitive aspect of it and kind of jumped right in from there. I think it was I love looking back at videos 11 years ago because I've made significant strides in form, in weight, obviously, in general, but so fun to look back. So I'm like, yeah, I'm killing this. And you look back and you're like, oh my God.
Some of it is a little shocking. You're like, I'm glad I don't look like that anymore, because I feel like as a coach, you're always like, you try and move a certain way and, demonstrate for the classes and whatnot. But so when you found this gym, was competition or the competitive side of CrossFit on your mind right away, or did the coach see something in you? Because I feel like it's a pretty quick trajectory of like join the gym in it, and all of a sudden 2 years later, it's like, oh, I'm on a team that's advancing to the highest level.
Yeah, it was kind of intense. I think they did see that I was an athlete and that I was probably going to pick things up pretty quickly, like randomly could handstand walk. So I think that was kind of one of the things where like, okay, wait, we need someone who can handstand walk. I don't really even know why that was just one of the random party tricks I had in my bag, I guess. And then I think I jumped right in to the first open. So I joined in January and then, so 2014, and then jumped into the open, February or March, maybe. It was still the 5-week open. So I was like ready to just jump in and try whatever. I know a lot of people when they first join, they're like, I can't do the open. And I think back then, I don't even know did they still have scaled versions of all the workouts?
I was curious. I don't even know if they did. Yeah.
I don't remember. It was so long ago.
Yeah. When you look at what you did as a volleyball player and how that translated into CrossFit, what were some of the things that you felt like really helped you excel early on? Because every sport is so unique and different. Where like, oh, we do certain movements, we avoid certain movements, we like explosive power-based movements, we like long endurance ones. So what was your training like as an athlete, as a volleyball player? And then how did that translate then to CrossFit? Were there certain things where you're like, this feels like home, and others you're like, I've never even done this before, but I'm excited to learn?
Yeah, I think most power-based movements, speed, jumping, agility, just body awareness, coordination kind of stuff. So I was an outside hitter. So I did a lot of jumping. But man, I tell you what, if I would have done CrossFit during college or in my off seasons, I would have been a better volleyball player for sure. We would do the weight room stuff, like the power cleans or the hang cleans and the squats. And I'd like to look back and see if I was doing all that correctly back then. We had pretty good trainers in college, but yeah, I think I also noticed I'm just still pretty good at like interval stuff. So, the quick bursts of energy and then recover pretty quickly. I like that kind of stuff, and I always have. But I'm sure I got my butt kicked on some endurance-based stuff because, a rally of volleyball is like 20 to 30 seconds sometimes and a minute at most probably. So I'm sure those were humbling back in the day, not so much anymore. But I do remember going in to play some just co-ed volleyball after joining CrossFit in the cities. And I remember, wow, I can jump a lot higher. I just feel faster on my feet. I love when college athletes come back home and do CrossFit, or even high school athletes. We have some high school athletes at this gym who do CrossFit in their off seasons. I'm like, gosh, I just wish I would have had that back when I was an athlete because it makes a big difference.
Yeah, 100% agree. We've got a few of those at our gym as well. And when I think back, athletically as well, I was like, man, if I had cleaned up my technique or gotten better at this, or it'd be amazing to see where you could go.
Mm-hmm.
And so for you, 2 years, quick escalation to the highest level of sport. When you first joined CrossFit, did you see it as sort of your competitive outlet? Because, to think of being in it to want to go to the games takes a lot of time and energy and effort versus some who are like, this is my hour of fitness. I just want to work out, want to be healthy, and I just go home. What was your mentality or how you sort of thought about CrossFit in those early days?
When I first joined, I had absolutely no idea that I would be anywhere near going to the CrossFit Games. And even that season leading up to it was like, I think right before the open, the head coach or the owner of the gym, he was kind of the head of the team that year and the previous years. He's like, I think we're going to kind of do this like a tryout almost, like you and this other gal. And so that put a lot of pressure on it. But leading up to that, I wasn't like, I'm training for the CrossFit Games. It's like, I'm training for Granite Games up in St. Cloud, like the local competitions. I was young, and no kids. I wasn't married yet. So it's like, okay, I'm going to go do the workout and then I'm going to stick around and do an hour of lifting and skill work and try to dial in certain things back when I had, all that time and energy when I'm 22, 23, 24. So it was not in the plan. And then once he kind of brought it to my attention, it was like, we're kind of running this like a tryout, put a little pressure on it. I did my best. They ended up choosing me to be on the team. And then it was kind of like, holy shit. So this was back when they did regionals. So we got to go to regionals in Columbus. And I mean, that alone, that was obviously the biggest stage I've ever been on. And we had Rich Froning in the lane next to us at some point. Why am I out here with Rich Froning right now? Because that was one of his first years doing team with Mayhem. And then we made it from regionals. Top 5 went. We got 4th at regionals. Yeah, so then all summer was just team training. I'm going to be totally honest, that pressure and just the feeling and the stress and anxiety and how much I was working throughout that season, it did kind of put a strain on the love of CrossFit for me. So I realized after that season, I was like, this is a check it off the box. I think I needed like a month break just to chill out and not even think about CrossFit. And then I found my love for it again. So now I am 100%. I go to class. I hang out with my friends. I do the extra credit on the side. I'm just doing this to be fit and healthy and have fun and hang out with my friends. And I know that's my passion. Like going to the CrossFit Games and that high up of competitions, just not for me anymore, for sure.
Yeah. How do you help guide other athletes or folks through that journey? Because I do think it's always interesting. People get into it for a variety of reasons, whether it's health and fitness, whether it's a competitive outlet. And I think as a coach or even as an owner, then there's those opportunities where you have some of these conversations with people of, what are we doing this for? What's the goal? What's the why? What sort of things have you come to understand or help others with, having gone through that journey yourself of competitive, general fitness and what that looks like?
We have a great culture here, greater culture. So we have a great culture here and the community is all kind of on the same page where it's like, hey, we're going to go to class. It's competitive in one sense, but it's also like, 92% of our memberships are here to move and feel good and hang out. And we're going to scale and modify as needed. So we do have a little bit of a competitive atmosphere, but mostly we're just here to move and hang out. And I really try to guide people to this is for fun. Like, remember, we get to do this. I say this all the time, sometimes when it's a tough workout, and I don't tell people like, this workout's going to suck or this is going to be really hard. I'm like, just remember that you're here for a reason. You chose to be here. We get to do this. Your body moves like this. It's awesome. So I have had to have some conversations where I can see people starting to get burnout maybe. And I'm like, just come in, move with the class, and don't put any stress on the extra stuff. You're going to get better just by doing the hour class. And I think when people put pressure on it or train for a certain thing, it sometimes becomes a job or monotonous, or just there's stress involved with it. And I know from personal experience that it's more fun when I don't put pressure on myself, and I'm here to hang out with my friends. And in the meantime, I'm going to get better no matter what. Yeah, I definitely conversations though, because I can see it.
Yeah, I've certainly experienced that as well. There's a quote that comes to mind for me that I saw that it's kind of been resonating, which is he who has the most fun wins. And I've been thinking about that of like, okay, how do we bring more fun to classes? How do we have people to get to have more fun? Because like you said, it means they're going to stay committed. They're going to stay involved. And even if they're competitive, how do they have fun throughout that process to stay in it? Because so quickly, if it turns into a job, it's monotonous, it's something that you almost dread going to, but you know you should go to it. It's really, really hard mentally to just stay in it. So you mentioned that, you took a little month off, kind of got back into the class. What was it that brought some of that fun and some of that joy back for you coming off some of the more competitive aspects to your CrossFit journey?
Just not having any pressure was enough. Just going to class, knowing I don't need to stick around and work on certain things. Like when you're competing with a team, it's really all based on your worst players. So if I'm the worst player on the team, I'm like, okay, I got to get better. That's kind of how I felt going into that season, because I was brand new. All of them had competed at that level before. Yeah, I mean, I handled it as best as I could, I think. But I could just tell at the end, I'm like, wow, you're tired. That was enough. So just going to class, I just think everyone benefits just from going to class, especially if there's no goal of actually going to the games. Like no one needs to work out 3 hours a day. That 1 hour, if you just put whatever you have for the day into that 1 hour, you're going to leave feeling so much better. You're going to be able to show up tomorrow and feel good and be able to do it again. And then there are people that I'm like, I'm not going to push you away from trying to reach goals, of course. Like if you are here and you want to do the extra credit, like there's a great setup through Training Think Tank, obviously, with you do your workout, you stick around, do the cool down, stick around, do the extra credit. You're going to make exponential gains if you do follow that. And that's kind of what
I love having that opportunity of like, hey, we've got the spectrum. If you're here just to move for an hour, well, you're going to get super fit doing that. If you want more, higher skills, etc., like we can help with that too. And I think that's what's so fun about CrossFit is there's always something to learn and figure out and try and navigate. And as coaches, just giving people the opportunity to experience some of that, which is what I think is super fun.
Yeah. I mean, even 11 years in, I always tell my new people, I'm like, I'm 11 years in and I'm still trying to perfect the clean and the snatch and the muscle up. So when they come in, I'm like, I'm giving you a prep course, but you're not going to perfect anything.
It's funny when you put it in perspective of like, hey, there's people who spend a lifetime trying to get these two movements dialed in to make it to the Olympics in terms of the clean and the snatch. And it's like, we do them, every so often. We're never going to get to that level, but it's fun to think about. There's people that's their whole livelihood. So,
yeah, right. It's fun.
And so one of the things that you mentioned too was you were really, really busy and still found the time to invest in your own health and wellness and doing classes outside of teaching and coaching, doing all of that. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges I hear from folks of how do I fit that hour of fitness into my day when I've got work or I've got kids or I've got these other things going on. So what was your process like for that? How did you find the time or manage your time to get your fitness in, still be a teacher, coach all these sports outside of that? So what did that time period look like for you?
Yeah, it was busy. Starting school, being there by 7 a.m. When you teach high school, it's really early. So we'd be there at 7 a.m. and then I'd coach until 5 o'clock. And then I'd have to just get right down to the gym, 5:30, probably to 7:30, 8 o'clock. So being that I was that busy, I did think like, wow, I only have this amount of time to try and train. And of course I had the timeline of when I need to be at my best and peak and be ready for my team. So again, I was kind of, I wouldn't say forced, but I was kind of like, you have to go and do this. Now I love working out at 5:30 a.m. So back in the day, I wish I would have just got it, been there at 5 a.m. and kind of trained before and then maybe go after and hit another hour or something. But now I love getting my workout done. So I just love how you probably have it too. Your people just find their time and they just kind of stick to it, right? You have your early morning crazy people who like to wake up at 4:30 a.m. You have your mid-morning people who work from home. You have your, I'm going to go after school or after work no matter what. I'm not waking up early. No, they have just no interest in being up before the sun. And everyone just kind of sticks to their thing. But I'm like, man, if some people struggle to get here in the afternoon, I just wish they would try to get up before work and get it out of the way so that it's not something that we're thinking about all day. Not something that an excuse could pop up and be like, okay, well, I can't. But it is hard to get people to get out of bed that early.
It's funny because it's probably our busiest, most consistent class is our 5:15 a.m. And I think that's part of it. It's like if it doesn't get done at that time of day, it probably won't get done or something will come up, especially when you have kids and families and things like that, that the day can get away from you pretty quickly. So that's like the non-negotiable. But it sounds like for you, that's sort of the same premise of like, it's on the calendar or this is the time it is. It's just in stone and it's part of my routine. It's part of what I do. It's not something that's an if or whatever, but like I'm going in, I'm getting my fitness in that day.
Yep. And it works out best for me. My kids are still sleeping. I mean, I'm literally at the gym all day most days, so I could work out at any time, but I do coach the morning classes. And this morning I was up for 5:30, 6:30 here. And it's just hard for me to just, find things to do all day and then come in at 4:30 p.m. Otherwise I will go to 4:30, but yeah, I love getting it out of the way and then having the rest of my day to just do whatever I need to do.
Yeah, it really helps. It's almost like a big win, check the box type of thing that, okay, the rest of the day is going to go however it's going to go, but at least I got this piece done that makes me feel really good about where I'm at.
Yeah, totally. Love it.
And so as you transition then after the games and moving, finding your husband, things like that, at some point in time, it sounds like either there was an itch or maybe just a desire to start coaching, and pretty easy transition if you're already coaching high school sports to move into the CrossFit side. But what was that process like? So hadn't been an athlete and part of gyms for a while, then all of a sudden deciding, hey, let me go explore the L1 and maybe help some folks out at the gym. What was that transition like?
It transitioned really well, especially being I was a phy ed and health teacher. So I went to school, doing the anatomy and the biophys and all the stuff with, bodies and how they move and just exercise in general. So that was an easy transition. But what was really nice was going from, I loved teaching high school kids. I made a huge impact on a lot of young kids' lives, which was so cool, so rewarding. I loved that time of my life. And then you also get the kids who are like, I'm forced to be at phy ed class and I hate this. Like, this sucks. So there was also, a little bit of that. Mainly it was very rewarding and I made a difference. But going into a gym where it's adults who are paying for this and they're eager to learn and they want to hear feedback, I'm like, this is so much easier teaching adults. So that in that sense was really easy to transition. I know how to coach. I know how to communicate with people. I know how to, I don't know, perform, I guess, when you're leading a class of students. So that part was easy. And then just trying to perfect, my own movement to be a better coach and to learn more about how the body moves and recovery and mobility and all that fun stuff that definitely didn't pertain so much to high school teaching kids. But yeah, it worked out really well because when we moved out there, it would have been tough for me to just kind of roll in, get my teaching license in Illinois, and then try to find a job without having to go into substitute teaching. So I just wasn't really that interested in trying to teach out there. And I thought maybe when we moved back, I would go back into teaching. So at that time, I was just like, you know what, this is a crazy life experience. We're living in Chicago, we're away from family, kind of meeting new friends, try and find a way to step in at the gym that we were at. And I actually ended up coaching at 2 gyms within like 30 minutes of each other. So like I said, I had a lot of time and I just coached. I coached a lot. So that was a different kind of exhausting, I will say.
Yeah.
And you're just, putting in hours and hours and sun up to sundown sometimes. It's tough doing that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think of different coaches' journeys. So if they're new, there's usually some sort of onboarding or internship. They kind of learn and get their, feet underneath them. For you, it sounds like it was a smoother transition, just having the background in teaching and working with others. In those early days, it sounded like you got a lot of reps, though, like coaching at 2 different gyms. So a lot of opportunities to figure it out and grow. What were some of the things that maybe you remember stood out to you about those early days of coaching CrossFit and what you learned from that experience?
have such a passion for CrossFit. I just love it so much. And I love what it did for me and kind of my story and my journey. And I love watching people who come from nothing, like no athletic background. And I am teaching you how to air squat right now. Like, it's amazing to watch what can happen in the first month or 2 months or the first year, especially. So just having that passion for like people who want to be there and want to learn. And I obviously love to coach and love to teach and chat and mingle and all that fun stuff. So I was like, okay, this is not, it's tough. Like, it's exhausting by the end of the day, but I'm like, I'm literally hanging out with my friends right now and teaching them how to move. So it was really cool that I was able to do that and still, make some money and kill some time. I didn't feel like I was doing nothing while we were out there. But I did learn that it's a lot of work. And that is something I kind of kept in mind when I have my coaching staff and I'm setting up the schedule for my coaches. I'm like, I don't want anyone to feel burnt out, because when that happens, that the product is going to go down. So that's really important to me. And I'm really lucky with how the schedule at my gym works out, just with the coaching staff that I have. But yeah, when I was coaching, there would be a day that I would literally coach the morning classes and then I would coach all afternoon. And it's like, that's only 5 hours, but it's 5 hours of constantly performing and repeating. And it got to be enough. But I did have my first son out there. So I did have to take a little bit of a step back when that happened. So I kind of put my head down and just did the grind for like 6-7 months probably. And then the next year that we were out there, it was more like, okay, I'm going to kind of be with my kid for a while, and then I'm going to go coach a class or two. So that was a little bit better balance, being kind of a stay-at-home mom with coaching.
Yeah, there's no better way to build your skill and proficiency than to just do the thing. So having all those reps for those 6 or 7 months probably helped exponentially, advance your coaching and how effective you can be with folks. And then the opportunity comes to travel back home, and the idea of gym ownership. I feel like it's, when you talk to folks, some of them have it early on in their CrossFit career of like, oh, I found CrossFit, I love coaching. What would it be like if I opened a gym or maybe got a gym? Was that what it was like for you? Or was this totally something that you were like, it wasn't on our radar to even think about owning a gym when you moved back to Minnesota?
So again, not on the radar really at all. It's kind of weird how everything just worked out the way it did. But yeah, we were like, let's move back home. Let's find a gym, kind of ease our way back in. Where we live, we're kind of in between a couple different gyms. So obviously the one that we bought and then one a little bit more south. And I ended up liking this one better. So we stuck with this one. Once we started hearing kind of grumblings of, hey, I think this gym is going to be put up for sale. And I could kind of sense that, I guess, with where it was and maybe where it was kind of heading. Just very different atmosphere when we first started. When we first heard that, and my husband's very business, he's the business guy. Like, I'm the programmer, I'm the face. He's like the brains behind everything. He was, starting to punch numbers and be like, yeah, I think we could do this. Like, if we really want to, are you sure you want to do this? Because obviously this is going to be my baby. He's got a job. And I was like kind of scared because I didn't want to say yes. I'm like, I'm going to be amazing at this. And then what happens if I'm not? But with, how many years of coaching, 2.5, 3 years of coaching, and then my background in sports and my background in teaching, I was confident enough that I could make it work. And I think a big part of it is just how you are as a person too. Like, do you care? And do you build community? And I think that's almost more important than anything. So I definitely knew I could do that part for sure. And then when we ended up buying it, it was kind of like on its way down, not gonna lie. It needed some rebuilding, it needed some help, we needed to grow. So when we bought it, it was scary in that sense also, that if we don't make progress here, we're gonna be it's a loss. Like, we're losing money month after month, that kind of thing. So that was a big risk in itself, but I'm very glad we took the risk. I'm very glad it worked out the way it did because, from day one, it's obviously gotten better. And now we're 5 years in as of yesterday.
Yeah, it's so exciting to look back and see where you started and then look at where you are now. And one of the things I'm interested in, because when I think you take over a space, you mentioned this idea of how important community is and culture. And there's probably certain aspects of the culture, the community that have already been established or ingrained. And, whether the business is being successful or not, you're taking over that. Did you have any direct, if you want to call like influence, or like, hey, we need to right the ship here, and part of that is what we're going to do with the community and as a culture, as new folks coming in to be the face of this? What was that like in those early days? Because it's like, okay, we do want to grow, we got to get members back, we got to go ahead and maybe make more relationships in the community, but we also have to start with what we have and make sure that's pretty strong.
Yeah.
So what were those early days like of trying to build your version or your vision of what you thought, Thousand Lakes Fitness could be?
Yeah, it was a change. We knew things had to change. The way it wasn't working, obviously, and I'm a much just different person than who was there before. So it took a little bit of, I wouldn't say it took convincing. Like people were like, "Sweet, like this is something new. We're going to change things around here. Things are going to hopefully get better." So we had an amazing group of people, just an awesome group that was already established. It was a small group. And a lot of them are still here with us today. So they've seen it since it opened in 2016. And then when we bought it in 2019, and they've just watched the progression, which is really cool. So those people are super special to us, obviously. And then, there were some people who were like, I'm not good with change. It is what it is. I'm just like, I'm used to this and it's a little bit different. And they were vocal about that. And that was fine. I'm like, yeah, you know what? The change is hard. Change is different. It feels weird, but we need to change some things. So I ended up keeping the programming that they had before. So I think we were using CompTrain before. So I just kept rolling with that. So it wasn't like the huge change right away. And then, changed the warm-ups. That was one thing I was like, God, we need more out of this. So I changed the warm-ups, which is easy fix. And then, just like started building communities. Like, how do we build community? What kind of events do we need to do? How do we get former members to come back? How do we get our current members to bring more people in? So it was more just trying to, slowly build. It wasn't like we were trying to just completely change everything, just slow build. And then obviously we got halted in March of 20. Did you have a gym at that time, or was that
No.
in your garage?
Yeah. So we've been around for 2 years now. So we were kind of way after that, but I
Mm-hmm.
was part of a gym that went through that. And that was just a whole nother experience of trying to just do whatever you could and figure it out, because there was no game plan. There was no playbook for how to operate during that time frame. And every state was different.
Mm-hmm. It was like full on, lockdown, I guess not lockdown, but it was
Yeah.
shut down here.
I can only imagine kind of the gut punch of like, we just bought this thing and we're trying to get this thing moving in the right direction. And then we have that to deal with and trying to navigate through that and be like, how do we not even maybe grow, but just like hang on for who knows how long until this thing passes.
Right. So when we first heard the rumors about what was going on, there was just such a weird, eerie feeling. I still remember how weird that was. I don't know, a couple of weeks probably passed by, or a week or whatever. I think it just happened so fast. And then we made this decision. We're like, let's shut down for a week, 2 weeks. I think we were like, let's do 2 weeks. Okay, we're just gonna shut down. We'll stay away, thinking we're doing, something really awesome. And then we heard like 2 days later that, we're shut down until, whenever they let it up. And it ended up being June of 2020, 3 months, so 3 months. And at that time it was literally, we just need to survive. Like we had 3 months under our belt of we're building momentum and we're gaining a few members here and there. And then it was like, how are we going to get these people to stick around and still help us pay our bills when we're, already losing money? So how do we get these people to just stick around? I mean, huge, heavy discounts. And then we had amazing people who were like, do not discount me. I want to help you. Please just keep my membership rolling. I'm here to support, all that kind of stuff. And loaning out equipment and doing Zoom classes 3 times a day. And obviously we didn't gain any members during that, but we held on and we made it work. And then we were able to come back together 3 months later. But that was a really scary time as a brand new business owner.
Yeah, the resilience that you're able to build when you get an opportunity to go through something super challenging, all of a sudden on the back end, you're like, okay, if we can navigate that,
everything's pretty fair.
Yeah.
Don't plan for that. That's for sure.
Yeah. And so having been at it now for 5 years, where do you see the business? Because I think like there's like the infancy stage of like, oh, we just started this thing, like we're trying to grow it. It's kind of small, but like see what we can do with it. And then you sort of hit like the adolescent phase of like, okay, we're getting our feet under us. We're figuring this thing out. Like we're growing, we're navigating our systems. And then, you just continue to find new levels to this. But where do you sort of see the gym at now of 5 years in?
Now that we're kind of past the first couple years of just survival, and then the next couple years of sweet, we're growing, we're building, we're establishing kind of our standards, our whatever events we do every quarter, all that fun stuff. Now this last year we've realized like, okay, we have the programming dialed in, we have the extra credit, we have the fun and the group of people and all the class times, and now we're like, how do we get these people more? How do we get them to buy into not just the workout? How do we get them to buy into, hey, you got to move more? Like, let's try to aim for 8 to 10,000 steps a day. Hey, do you know how much protein that you're eating in a day? So we kind of established this TLF standard, we called it, and we did a 9-week challenge, and not everyone did the challenge. We had a small group, but these are the things that we want people to just take with them basically every day. It's kind of just the standard. Do you get your sleep? Do you get your steps? Do you eat your protein every day? Do you know how much protein or how much food you're eating? Or just to get an idea of that, do you get your 3 to 5 workouts in a week? So we're trying now to just move towards just betterment in general of people's health. And we know we're crushing it in the workouts and the programming. That's great. That's awesome. But that's just one small piece of it. And it's the best piece of it. I love it the most. But I think we just want people to not do more, but just understand more about just health and wellness in general. So that's kind of our mission. That's our next stage here, as we're trying to just find more ways to get people to buy into more than just the work.
Yeah, you start to realize the things that impact people's health, mindset, sleep, recovery, nutrition, obviously being a huge one there, and then movement. There's so many factors. And it's like, okay, we get to impact, I've heard people say the 60 minutes, which is basically 4% of somebody's day. There's so much other things happening in those other 23 hours. How do we help people make decisions that will move them to the healthy and fit lifestyle that they're looking for? And, they already have the relationships, they already have the trust with you. So it's like, how do we figure out a way to either educate or provide opportunities for them to do that?
Right. And we always find that, we're CrossFitters. So people like to either check off a box or they like a challenge, something with a prize at the end, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But we're trying to make it less of this is a challenge like you have to sign up for. It's more, this is just the standard. This is just what we want you to know. So yes, it's going to be more on us educating and just getting the word. Even I, in the last couple of years, have learned a lot about my own nutrition and my own needs. And wow, I really wasn't walking as much as I thought. I literally am at a gym all day and I'm not moving 10,000 steps. How is this possible? So even just bringing my own awareness to it. And I think, leading by example and getting buy-in from our coaching staff, and my husband and I we're constantly trying to find ways to better the gym and better the people. And I think, especially when it's not all competitive athletes, most of them aren't, it's not so much about the muscle ups and how heavy you can lift. It's more about move well, recover well, mobilize, eat well, sleep. So hopefully we'll find ways to make that an easy sell to most of our people.
Yeah, I think once you get them in the door and they start to notice some change, they're like, oh, this is fun. I like it. I'm experiencing something different. I'm interested in more in terms of like, how do I move closer to that health and wellness stage, which I think is awesome. One of the things I noticed even when we connected down in Georgia was a lot of passion still for CrossFit. And even hearing you say it 5 years in, what are the things that continue to get you excited or want to continue to invest in Thousand Lakes? Because I think that's what's interesting is it's for a small business to survive those first couple of years, it's not common. So to make it past that threshold, but then to want to keep getting better and growing, what are the things for you that stand out of like, this is why I'm excited for the next 5 years, not just what we've accomplished so far?
Well, after getting my level 2, that was a huge game changer. Like the level 1 is cool. It's nice. It's a starting point, but man, what you get out of the level 2, which I did that a couple years ago, is just huge and so eye-opening, and just like, wow, I learned a lot about how to be a better coach there. And then, going down to the skills camp, when we did that, like you saw my other coach, Miranda, too, and then a couple of our members went too. I wasn't going to be really necessarily a better athlete. It was like, I'm going to listen to these professional coaches, and I'm going to take what they're saying. I'm going to take their progressions and I'm going to use them here. So just finding ways to get better as a coach, because I can still get better. There's still days where I am done coaching. I'm like, dang it, I wanted to do more with that and I didn't. And then there's days where I'm like, man, I killed that. I'm still doing that as a 5-year gym owner. I'm still trying to get better. Still trying to deliver the best product. And I do think we have that with the programming that we follow. So that makes it easy. With my husband having, a full-time job outside of the gym, and this is my full-time job here, it is really, we're lucky that we're set up this way where it can be, it's not a hobby. This is definitely not a hobby. Like, this is a career. This is my job, but we can put a lot back into this place, and we're constantly just trying to upgrade equipment, or we renovated a whole nother space so we had more room to fit more members when we were kind of outgrowing our old space. We're adding soon a recovery area, which is supposed to hit in January, hopefully. So it's like we're able to put our heart and our soul and things back into the gym, which is really nice. And I know not every gym has that. And I know sometimes gym ownership can be really tough. It's kind of like teaching, I would say, like, you can't really be in it for the money. Some people maybe, but it's, yeah, we're lucky in that sense that we can put things back into the gym that we want.
Yeah, it's that idea of continually pushing yourself personally, growing, learning, realizing there's just new levels to this game. You never sort of fully arrive, and then investing that back into the members, which I think they sense that, even if they don't realize, like, why is she going down to Georgia, or why are they going to do these things? They might experience the benefits of it, like, oh, that's new. Didn't hear that cue before. Didn't know that progression before. Oh, there's a new space that's going up. They start to see the investment, and I think that gets members excited as well.
Yeah, definitely does. It does.
And so excitement over the next 5 years, it sounds like, in terms of adding on and building more and investing more in your community. What do you see for yourself as a coach? You mentioned the level 2, you mentioned going to skills camps and learning from others. What are the things that you have found to be most helpful or beneficial, or things you're excited to maybe add into your toolkit to help people be happier and healthier?
Well, hopefully, as my kids get older, hopefully I can. Right now, we're kind of this is easy. I got a 6 and a 3-year-old, so I can still be at the gym, and, I don't have after school activities I'm driving my kids to. So I'm going to really try to just soak up this time that I can be here when I want. I can bring the kids here. They're not off doing other things. I know that's going to get crazy here. Maybe not 5 years, but in the next 7, 8, 10 years, it's going to be crazy with kids in sports. But I just want to keep getting better. I just want to maybe provide more opportunities. Sometimes I think gyms can get lost in, like, oh, we have all these different things, where I'm like, okay, we provide a really good product in, the 1-hour class that we do. And every now and then we'll throw in an Ole class. Or now that we have more, tools from the skills camp, or just the things that Training Think Tank provides, we can run a skills class. Or we could, do a Sunday morning yoga flow or something if I want to lead that. So just providing little opportunities like that. But when I find our people gravitate towards those things more when they're offered less, I would say. So it's not like every week we have an Ole class. It's like, hey, every couple of weeks I'm going to offer an Ole and we're doing clean and jerks. So then people will show up. Or it's a random yoga and the gym will be full. But if it was offered every week, it's not full.
Yeah, there's that scarcity mindset where it's like, if it's only offered every so often, or it's limited, or there's only a certain number of slots, all of a sudden people are like, oh, really?
Yeah.
I want to be a part of that. I don't want to miss out, because it doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah.
So I love that. And I love the perspective too of just constantly trying to find ways to get better, soak up what's available and what you're capable of investing right now, and then knowing that, things will change over time. It'll be fun to see how that unfolds.
Yeah.
One of the questions I love asking all of our guests is, when you start to think about, like, principles or values, we always have like different visions or missions for like the gym or businesses or what we want those to be. But I also love hearing from folks what some of their personal or individual principles or values are that sort of guide or influence the way they operate and work through life. Is there anything that comes to mind for you that's sort of like a, hey, this is how I sort of think about or how I make decisions or how I want to sort of live my life and what that looks like?
I just want to be as good of an example as I can be, whether it's at home as a mom or it's here in the gym, leading a class or just moving with the class. I think being a part of the class and a part of the community, the people notice that, and I think they like to see their coaches working out next to them, right? They like to see the gym owner right next to them. And I think I just love watching people's journeys. And I love, like, I take a ton of videos on my phone from years ago, and I probably have 40,000 pictures and videos on this tiny little phone. I just love watching people's journeys through even my lens. I'm like, wow, I'll send them a video from a couple years ago. Look at this, like, look at how much you've improved. And it's hard for people to see it happening day after day. But when you go and compare to a year or two ago, it's so fun to see, and just people's reactions to PRs and just how supportive they can be for our small business and just the thanks that they give and how grateful they can be. I just feel so lucky that this is what I get to do every single day. Like I said earlier, I'm hanging out with my friends and I'm making them healthier humans and leading by example. I'm like, just feel really lucky that that's what I get to do.
Yeah, I love that. That idea of setting an example certainly helped to, change the culture and the community that you have. Being present, being invested, giving to that community has allowed it to grow over these 5 years, and helping people see some of those achievements is really, really cool. For folks who are interested in either connecting or learning more about Thousand Lakes, what are the best places for them to catch up with what you've got going on up there?
Head to our website, thousandlakesfitness.com. Right there, you can pull up a text link. We're a push press gym. I don't know if you know that. Are you a push press gym?
We're actually not. So it's been, pushed on us working with Best Hour. We work with StreamFit. We've been with them kind of since their infancy, and so we're pretty happy with where we're at. But Push Press is really, really good. I've heard amazing things about them.
They make it easy. So you can easily text us from the website. Check out our Instagram. Our Instagram's always popping with new videos or little tidbits of information. So you can go right to our link there too.
Yeah, well, it was really cool getting an opportunity to meet and interact with you down at Training Think Tank. It's always fun to meet other coaches and owners and how they're navigating, figuring this out. And I appreciate you taking some time to chat with me today on the podcast, and looking forward to seeing what you're able to accomplish up there in Minnesota.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'll keep track of you and Greater Culture on the old Instagram.
Oh, yeah. It's the best place to keep up with what everyone's up to these days and be like, that's pretty cool. I'm going to steal that because they've got something really cool that I like. Like, I'm going to do that over at our gym now.
Every now and then I put up some pretty fire content, so you could take some if you want.
Yeah, we'll be following. We'll be following.
Awesome. It was great chatting.